So a little nervous, first time I've spoken in front of you. But I'm here for reasons to talk about SB277 and medical exemptions. Thank you for listening to me. My talk is about 2.5 minutes, so hopefully you can give me the extra 30 seconds. On June 29th last year, Senator Pan clarified the intent of SB277 to the California State Senate before it voted. The law included an amendment allowing medical exemptions based on the recommendation of a physician, and that family medical history, may be considered to determine whether the vaccination is appropriate for the patient. Even as he shepherded this legislation through, he knew about the CDC whistleblower who came forward with an admission of fraud eroding the public confidence in the vaccine program. On a separate occasion, Ben Allen specifically stated that doctors not be sanctioned or impacted by using their discretion for granting a medical exemption, and anyone who has a legitimate medical concern, he said, can get one. They are in the physician's judgment. Under the letter of the law, doctors can write medical exemptions, but there is a lot of pressure in the medical field not to give them. I understand that 99.9% of children under federal guidelines do not qualify for a medical exemption. We know vaccines harm. Otherwise, the pharmaceutical industry would be liable for those products. And we know that $3 billion has been paid out in death and injury claims by the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. So that in itself proves that it's true. They do harm some. So these conditions put a lot of pressure on every licensed physician in California. SB277 does not contain a provision that allows school districts, health departments, or anyone else to review or reject a physician's medical judgment. But it's happening. It started with the Santa Barbara Medical Exemption Pilot Project.
Please conclude.
Thank you. These actions not only violate SB277, but as I understand, may also violate many federal and state privacy laws. So, two more things I want to bring. With the machine in place to trump every medical exemption, trust in our legislators, our medical community is eroded. Freedom as we know it has ended with SB277, and I've come here today to ask each of you to support my right, to support all of our rights to make informed medical decisions with our doctors about vaccination, without coercion, without the threat of investigation due to complaint or loss of medical license, to let doctors use their judgment to write a medical exemption without risk. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. I have the same problem, so go ahead.
I'm also here to speak on SB277, and I will try to keep my comments so that they aren't overlapping too much with who spoke before me said. I'm here because the letter that Dr. Charity Dean sent out really raised a lot of red flags for me. And if you are not aware, on June 6, 2016, she sent out a letter stating to all school superintendents, principals, and child care center directors to send all medical exemptions for a, quote, comprehensive review of each exemption for the purpose of data collection and compliance with SB277 criteria. When Governor Brown signed SB277 into law, he explicitly stated that the legislature specifically amended SB277 to exempt a child from immunizations whenever the child's physician concludes that there are circumstances, including but not limited to, family history for which the physician does not recommend immunization. Given what the governor has stated, it is clear that there is no need for Dr. Dean to perform a comprehensive review of each exemption, as she is not the child's doctor. She has absolutely no reason to burden the schools or anyone else with any additional steps, as the child's doctor has already concluded that the medical exemption is warranted, which is exactly in line with what Governor Brown has stated when he signed the bill into law. It is my summation that Dr. Dean and other department heads are using their positions to circumvent the explicitly stated authority of the child's physician. I respectfully request that you tell her and others in her position to stop usurping the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Butcher.
My name is Christina Hildebrand. I'm from A Voice for Choice, which is an organization that advocates for people to have informed choice and transparency of anything that goes into their body. I too am here to speak about vaccinations and the role that doctors have in writing medical exemptions. When you talk about vaccines, especially to doctors and many doctors, it's a taboo subject as a consumer, as a patient. But it's something that, most doctors will say they're safe and effective, but they're not 100% safe and effective. And there are children and adults who do get injured by these vaccines. Unfortunately, there's no way of telling or explicitly telling which child is at risk or which adult is at risk and which one is not from the vaccines. The vaccine schedule that the CDC has, the 72 doses by the age of 18, has never been tested in its entirety to see whether it is completely safe. I see two issues here that I would like you and I ask you to look at. One of them is that the insurance companies are giving kickbacks to doctors to have their children that are under age 2 or by age 2 fully vaccinated. There is up to $400, maybe even more, being given for every child that is vaccinated fully, which means that doctors are not looking at whether a child, what the risk and the benefit is. They're looking at their bottom line. $400 is a very nice amount per child under the age of, or who gets to 2 and is fully vaccinated. So I'd like you to look at the Stark Act and the kickbacks that those doctors are getting for fully vaccinating their children, and whether they truly are looking at the risks and the benefits for each and every child. The other thing that I see is that there is no recourse for patients who do get injured, not severely injured, but just have a seizure or have some reaction to a vaccine, because under the Vaccine Compensation Act, you have to have had an anaphylactic shock or have died from the vaccine to go to that program and request for monetary compensation.
Please conclude.
I will. So the other piece of it is that there are many doctors' practices that are now throwing children out of their practice because they are not 100% vaccinated, which again, if you're looking at each and every child and looking at the risk and the benefit of a vaccine for that child, you need to have a doctor allow children in there that are not 100% vaccinated, and that comes from either the corporations that they're working for, such as Kaiser or Stanford or other larger corporations having a say of you must have vaccinated children, or from the insurance companies. And what that leaves you with is a very few number of doctors who are in private practice, don't take insurance, who are willing to look at these children holistically. So I ask you to do those two things. Number one, to look and investigate the kickbacks that doctors are getting. And number two, really look at whether the doctors are doing no harm by having the children 100% vaccinated in their practice, because 100% of children
Please wrap
should
it
not
up.
be vaccinated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hildebrand.
Good afternoon. We each have a 2-minute comment. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. So good afternoon. My name is Andre Angelantoni, and I'm a resident of San Francisco. Though I'm not in medicine, I have a Bachelor of Science degree, and my science background includes being a co-author of 2 academic papers, including one in the Philosophical Transactions A of the Royal Society. So I do have some experience in how to gather rigorously evidence for a hypothesis. I plan on being a parent one day, and I intend to discuss the scientific basis for permitting parents to work with their doctors to choose whether and how much to vaccinate without mandates. Specifically, I'm going to talk about recent advances in our knowledge of how repeated immune activation due to aluminum adjuvanted vaccines may cause vaccine injury, including autism. It's commonly thought that vaccine injury is limited to some soreness in the arm, a slight fever, and in those allegedly rare 1 in a million cases, some paralysis or even death. Injury rates are currently seen to be so low that the benefits of vaccination far outweigh the drawbacks. In most people's minds, autism is absolutely not caused by vaccination. Fortunately, recent work by Caltech, UC Davis, and other groups is providing us the biological mechanism behind much vaccine-induced autism. Their work is showing how, first, maternal immune activation increases interleukin-6, and that is strongly pointing to the biological mechanism. It's long been known that infection during pregnancy causes autism and schizophrenia, and it wasn't the infection per se, but the mother's immune reaction to the infection that caused it. In 2005, Vargas et al. At Johns Hopkins showed that most brains of the autistics they autopsied were inflamed. In 2009, Caltech tested the theory that purposefully elevating interleukin-6 would cause inflammation. They found the mice exhibited autistic behavior.
Your time is up. Please conclude.
In 2014, Caltech partnered with UC Davis and performed the same experiments. By elevating interleukin-6, they were able to produce autistic monkeys. Emily will continue.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your time. My name is Emily Bentley. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Kinesiology, and I am a successful business owner in Berkeley. I am also a mother of a child who is partially vaccinated and is not able to attend kindergarten. To continue on some of Andre's points, other groups corroborated the maternal immune activation work. Panita's group at the School of Medicine at UCLA published their work with mice and stated that interleukin-6, IL-6, is necessary and sufficient for producing autism in offspring. Wise group at the New York Institute for Basic Research replicated Patterson's work and showed that elevating interleukin-6 via a genetically modified virus caused autistic behavior in postnatal mice. This evidence shows that elevating interleukin-6 will cause autism. What else raises interleukin-6? Aluminum adjuvanted vaccines. Up to 60% of the vaccines on the CDC infant and childhood immunization schedule include aluminum adjuvant. Aluminum is included to activate the immune system, and without it, the body would not recognize the weakened antigens and would not create the necessary antibodies. Vaccine adverse reactions can stimulate enormous IL-6 production in the brain in the same amount that causes brain damage in experimental animals. The studies supposedly disproving the link to autism consider only the MMR, measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. Aluminum-containing vaccines have not been studied, with the exception of hepatitis B, which is strongly associated with autism. Also, an epidemiological study by Shaw's group shows that exposure to aluminum from vaccines is associated with autism within the United States and across 7 developed countries. Vaccine promoters are using the MMR studies to argue that all vaccines have been proven safe. But this is dishonest and a misuse of this science.
Please conclude.
Vaccines are different, and the MMR does not contain aluminum. There is powerful scientific evidence for the mechanism by which and the ingredients in vaccines causing brain damage and autism. I urge you to consider these facts when conducting reviews, as physicians must be free to practice medicine in view of the latest science and how it relates to an individual's care. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Angeltoni, and thank you, Ms. Bentley. Are there any other?
Actually, if I can just say, we did give some handouts with the citations for the mice and monkey studies. We'd like to respectfully request that the board receive them.
Thank you.
And those were handed out to the members.
Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you briefly today. I'm a mother of 2 boys, ages 5.5 and 9. I'm here today because I'd like to see SB277 reformed, and I see that my rights as a parent and those rights of my children are being violated. You see, our family has significant history with autoimmune dysfunction and neurological dysfunction. We are also concerned about aluminum vaccines, the body's known challenges in processing it, and the effects of aluminum on a young child developing body when given multiple vaccines at one doctor's visit. Because of this and family history, we made an informed decision to vaccinate our children on a delayed, one-at-a-time schedule. And while my older son has a neurological concern and has been on hold on vaccinating orders for over 6 years, my younger son, who is so excited to go to kindergarten in 2 weeks, may be denied entrance at his brother's SFUSD elementary school because he is 5 vaccines away from being compliant with SB277. By maintaining SB277 in its current form, the state of California is violating my children's rights, children who are dependent on their parents to consider family history and apply healthcare choices we see necessary to support lifelong health and vitality. I ask the California Medical Board to work to adjust SB277 in consideration of families like mine. Thank you.
Thank you.
I spoke to you yesterday, and I have some follow-up comments on the same topic, but a little bit differently. As I spoke to you yesterday regarding SB277 and the medical exemptions and how doctors are being incentivized for fully vaccinating children up until the age of 2 and the kickbacks that they're getting, and I asked you to look into that. And what I realized was it's really a broader issue, that the doctors are getting kickbacks from a number of for doing a number of different processes. It can be various surgeries they recommend, or the one that we're interested in is the vaccination policy, but or the vaccination piece of it. But I do ask that you look into that fully and look at whether doctors are really doing what they should be doing because they're getting money incentivized back. The piece that I wanted to talk about today was specifically the medical exemption pilot program that has been put on by the Santa Barbara County public health director there, Charity Dean, and Dr. Wana. And it has also been copied in Sacramento County and Marin County. And our concern there is that they are collecting the medical records, the medical exemptions from all the schools and looking at them. And there was a meeting, a teleconference on May 13th, which the California Medical Board attended, to identify suspicious medical exemptions and how to report those suspicious doctors. And my concern there is SB277 in the law states, and specific to Governor Brown's signing statement, said that it was at the discretion of the doctor to give those medical exemptions. As I mentioned yesterday, vaccines are claimed to be safe and effective. They are not 100% safe and effective. If you just read the package insert, as with any drug, they're not 100% safe and effective. And so there are doctors that are using the latest research, some of it you heard yesterday, and are doing evaluations really truly on the risk to benefit ratio of vaccines for an individual, not on a mass scale. And those doctors are giving some of those doctors are giving medical exemptions when it's appropriate. But I would ask you to please call off the witch hunt on those doctors who are giving medical exemptions. They're good doctors, and they're giving them legally and legitimately, and they are doing the ones that we're aware of. They're doing their piece to help these children. So I would just ask you to please call off the witch hunt, and really, if you're looking at doctors that don't give the full schedule of vaccines, to understand that there needs to be those doctors out there for our children and for people who can be more susceptible to vaccines, not based on the CDC contraindications, but based on their family history. So, for example, if a child's sibling has had a seizure or has died from a vaccine injury, that sibling is considered in getting a medical getting a medical exemption. So that is my ask for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hillebrand.